Very quickly, the majority of pilots come to prefer the reverse launch because it allows a visual check of the glider. It's also easier, as the wing rises, for the pilot to effect the correct adjustments and find the best position to be in himself. This type of inflation is also better adapted to stronger conditions. There is no correct method. The right method is the one you master and which ensures that you take off safely. In all cases, be attentive to the situation and know how to adapt your reactions as required. The conditions are strong? Maybe you shouldn't wait before starting your takeoff run. Is the takeoff site a gentle sandy or grassy slope, or a steep and rocky incline? For each launch, analyze the situation and act accordingly. We're now going to watch as David demonstrates the crossed brakes method. Turn to face the wing, the risers crossed in front of him. David takes the left brake in his left hand and the right control in his right hand. He next takes the front risers which are in front of each hand. He therefore has in his left hand the left brake and the right hand front risers, and in his right hand the right brake and the left hand front risers. This method is very safe because the pilot doesn't have to let go of the controls as he is launching. On the other hand, it can be off-putting at the outset and a potential source of error because the controls are crossed. The right hand brake controls the side of the wing to your left and the left brake controls the right side. Once the wing is stabilised, the pilot can turn round while always maintaining contact with his wing. In strong winds, the movement of the wing in the power zone is the critical moment of the inflation. The wing is in the transitional phase and is barely flying. It presents a strong resistance to the wind, producing a pulling effect. At this point you could be surprised by the power of the wing. To reduce this energy, reduce the loading on the wing by walking towards it. David illustrates this by moving 3 or 4 meters towards his wing. Note his flexed position at the moment of surge. Advancing towards the canopy, David stands up, reducing the wing loading a little more. In addition, being flexible makes him more stable and avoids his being unbalanced when the wing starts to pull him. A different situation. For this demonstration, Jerome is using an ultralight wing and the wind is virtually nil. Jerome is going to use the same method of inflation that we've just seen with David. He is simply going to adapt it to the new context. Jerome pre-inflates the wing so as to better position it for the inflation. Note how the wing rises easily despite the absence of wind. With this type of equipment, very light input is required, even in weak conditions. Note that Jerome doesn't have to walk towards the wing. On the contrary, he needs to move backwards to load the wing even more. Here, he's not trying to reduce the speed of the wing, but to increase it, so as to overcome the lack of wind. The wing lifts. Jerome checks it visually as it rises. He controls the wing after turning. It's possible to do this when the wing rises gently. In this situation, very light pressure on the brakes is enough. Then Jerome loads the canopy and starts his run. Now another situation with Timothy at the Dune de Pilar. Here he again makes use of the crossed brakes technique, the right-hand brake in his right hand and the left brake in his left hand. In contrast, however, he handles the brakes differently, and he holds the risers in one hand. To control the wing from one side to the other, therefore, it's necessary to change the hand holding the risers. Wind conditions are moderate, about 10 km per hour. Therefore the leading edge is already inflated. Timothy provides a light input, sufficient in these conditions, and advances slightly towards the wing. He controls it, and having stabilized it, he turns. In all cases this control is essential, but must not last longer than necessary. The context will dictate whether or not you remain stationary before starting your takeoff run, but there is no necessity to do so. Here in light wind and on sand, Timothy allows himself, having controlled the wing, to delay the start of his takeoff run. But be careful, in certain conditions or on certain takeoffs, it's better to launch as soon as the wing is stabilized. He raises his hands to increase the speed of the wing, leans into his chest strap and starts his takeoff run. Here's a further example with Russell in slightly stronger conditions. Again, you can see how the wing sits up on the ground. In these conditions, only a small force is needed to cause the glider to rise to its full height above the ground. Russell moves towards the wing to reduce its power, then brakes it to prevent it overflying him. The wing is stabilized, and he turns. Note that the control is effective, but is not longer than necessary. A final visual check, then he starts a good takeoff run. The final example and another situation here with Jerome. This time the conditions are clearly stronger and the terrain uneven. A light input is all that's necessary to raise the wing to its zenith. The maneuver is skillfully carried out and Jerome launches safely. Nevertheless, that's not to say that this launch couldn't have been improved upon. In these strong conditions, Jerome could have advanced a lot more boldly towards the wing at the moment it began to climb. He could also have been more flexed, which would have allowed him to lighten the wing by standing up as it accelerated. Already being upright, however, he was unbalanced and pulled by the wing as it accelerated. Pressurized in this way, the wing lifted far too quickly, causing Jerome to have to brake it firmly. This demanded a very fast and accurate response on Jerome's part, and could be more difficult to handle by less experienced pilots. Anticipate the behavior of your wing and adapt your reactions to the situation. Ground handling sessions require an adequate wind speed, which can sometimes develop into stronger conditions. For your safety, therefore, you should know how to effectively collapse your glider. The method you'll have learned at your flying school consists of braking the wing until it falls behind you. As you can see, this method has its limits, as in strong wind it becomes very strenuous. In addition, the still partially inflated wing drops back through the power zone. At this moment you risk being forcibly dragged backwards by the wing. This is not a particularly comfortable situation in which to find yourself. If you need to collapse the wing in strong wind, turn to face the canopy. It's more easily achieved in this position and avoids you being dragged off. When you decide to collapse it, go with the wing by running towards it. This helps to reduce the power in the wing by depressurizing it. Running forwards is easier. Still facing the wing, you can also collapse it by using the rear risers. Don't hesitate in strong winds, use the rear risers. This is the safest and most effective method. In this way you completely break the profile of the wing. It loses all its energy without pulling you backwards. In every case, use the brakes or the rear risers and go with the wing. You can also move off centre yourself once the canopy is on the ground to prevent it from being able to re-inflate. Here's another method. Be careful as it's fairly technical and best suited to pilots of a certain level of skill. It demands precision and must be effected smoothly. This technique consists of collapsing one side of the wing, then stalling the other. With his back to the wing, Russell takes the front risers in one hand and the rear risers in the other. He begins by causing the right side to collapse by firmly pulling on the front risers. When the wing is collapsed, he stalls the other side by pulling on the back risers, preventing any rotation from the open side. The wing finds itself almost instantly deflated and depressurized. It drops gently to the ground. This exercise consists of advancing up an incline while maintaining the glider in the air. It's carried out in light wind and on a gently inclined slope. Watch David as he reclimbs the hill. Two obvious phases are apparent. When the wing is flying or rising, David walks towards it. When the wing descends, David stops before it touches the ground and speeds it up by lifting the front risers as during an inflation. The wing rises, he advances. The wing drops again, he stops to give it more speed, and so on. The exercise demands a good regulation of energy input to the wing and a certain amount of anticipation. The wing climbs, you can advance. By moving towards it, you depressurize it, as well as nullifying the effect of the wind. The wing will therefore lose its speed before dropping back. Make sure that you advance gently towards the wing, if not you risk depressurizing it too quickly, leading to its deflation and the end of its flight. As the wing descends again, stop before it touches the ground and give it some speed using the front risers. Here, watch how Jerome controls each side of the wing independently. He re-inflates in turn the right side, then the left, and moves himself to maintain a certain loading on the wing. The wing rises again to its zenith, thus preventing the pilot from advancing further. Use the rear risers to brake it and cause it to fall once again. Moving from the front risers to the back quickly and without hesitation is a good exercise in skill and dexterity. To remain in control of the wing, you should also move yourself laterally. This will counter localized changes in wind direction. Here, the wing goes to the right. Jerome naturally shifts himself towards the left to maintain a symmetrical tension between the risers. Once the wind has returned to its previous direction, the glider and pilot realign themselves. This exercise helps you to understand how it's possible to control the speed of each side of the wing by well-calculated inputs to the front risers and repositioning of yourself. Familiarity with these sensations is indispensable in achieving good elevation of the wing during a reverse launch inflation.